Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today to the NC10 by 10 directors discussion. I have all of our 10 directors here and we're so excited to talk about the process and how hard it was / exciting it was to take these 10-minute original plays and bring them to you in a virtual format. So just start with if everyone can go around, say your name, and I would love to know if you've done NC10 by 10 before or any kind of connection with Odyssey Stage or Carrie Playwrights before this as well. Oh, also which show you directed.
Should probably tell us, say a name.
Yeah, maybe you should call on us, Chloe. I don't think we know which order we're in.
Danielle.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm Danielle Fenton. I directed Unwanted Poets. I do have a history with 10 by 10. I was a board member of Odyssey Stage, one of the producers, and I've directed the past 2 seasons.
Great. Bonnie?
Okay. Hi. I'm Bonnie Marie Williams. What were the other questions? My brain just went.
What is your, have you done 10 by 10 before, your connection with Carrie or Odyssey Stage, and what show you directed?
Okay, I do know that one. I directed New Age Farewells, and I'm new to the NC10 by 10, and I was in Coming Back for Me as part of the Project Chrysalis 2.0. We did that, and that was super fun. Yeah.
Great. Michael?
Yes, my name is Michael Parker. I directed Something Old, Something New. My work in the past with Carrie Playwrights Forum has been, this is actually my first 10 by 10 as a director. I acted in one a couple years ago, but I've also directed for bar plays.
Great. JP?
Yes, well, I'm John Paul Middlesworth, and I have been involved with North Carolina 10 by 10 since its founding. Lydia Spityakoff and I, we were the kind of two people, she from Carrie Playwrights Forum and me from Odyssey Stage. We kind of got everything arranged for that first time. So I've been directing in each of the 3 that I've also produced. And this year I was directing Marcel Marceau's acting class and editing a number of them, many of them, video editing.
Great. Lucia?
Hi, I'm Lucia Foster. I directed Rain Like Tears, and this is my first time directing with the NC10 by 10, but I had the great privilege of being in 3 of the pieces last year for 2019. And this play sort of fell into my lap just in the nick of time as there was a need for a change up in director, and I was really pleased to be able to do this. I've have a real passion for 10-minute plays in general, and it's interesting to do them on Zoom.
Tom?
Hi, I'm Tom Hayes. I directed The Bluebird, and I directed a play a couple years ago, the first year that we started, that we resurrected the NC10 by 10. And I've been on the CPF board for quite a while. I've been producing and so on the Play Slam for many years now, and pretty involved with bar plays as well.
Okay. Noelle?
Hi, I'm Noelle Azzarello, and I directed The Kindness of Strangers. This is my first time being involved with 10 by 10, but I've been involved with Carrie Playwrights Forum in various capacities. I've produced things, I've directed quite a few things for bar plays and other things. So not new to Carrie Playwrights Forum, just new to 10 by 10.
Great. Art?
Hi, I'm Art Jolin, and I got sucked into Odyssey Stage through this series of 1940s radio plays that we're staging. I was involved in the last 3, and the last one, which right now is on hiatus because of COVID, I directed it as well. This is my first time directing anything with 10 by 10, and I directed The Affliction, the 2-character comedy about the guy with the very active hernia.
Yeah. And Jen?
Hi, I'm Jen Bianchi. This is my 2nd year with the 10 by 10, first year directing. And yeah, I'm super excited to do it. It was a unique challenge.
Great. And finally, my name is Chloe. I am the director of Twist and Doubt and also the co-producer with JP and Danielle here. This is my 2nd year with 10 by 10. Last year, I was the stage manager. Great. So now we're excited to talk a little about virtual theater in general, and we'll talk a little bit more about NC10 by 10 in general as well. So I know some of you, this isn't your first show with virtual theater. A couple people have done some before this. So you can feel free to talk about those experiences or this one, but I kind of want to know, when you got your first piece that you knew you were going to do virtually, what were your fears or your thoughts / concerns about doing a show virtually? Let's go to Noelle first, because I know you've done a couple of them.
Yeah, I think the very first thing that I did virtually was Chrysalis for CPF, and that was initially conceived not to be virtual theater. So I think approaching something that you initially conceived to be virtual is a really different process for me than something that you initially planned to do in person. So one of the things that I really try to do with virtual theater is look at what can I do because I'm in this medium that I would not be able to do in a theater. So I've directed and produced maybe half a dozen virtual things since we've been in the pandemic now.
Yeah, I feel like you've done a lot. I see your name on a lot of things.
I've been a busy girl. But yeah, so I really try to look at what can I do that is embracing the technology instead of feeling like, oh, I can't, it's not like real theater, it's not a real play, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this. So I've really looked at, like with CPF, I did some things that I thought were fun for Chrysalis, with working with the idea of things happening in one person's space that aren't happening in the other person's, because this portions of that play were going on in the character's head. I also directed a full-length virtual stage production for the Women's Theater Festival. And some of the things I looked at with that were the idea of, we've been breaking the fourth wall. We've had our actors talking directly to the camera. And then I played with then zooming out to find out that two people were actually in the same space. And now they're talking to each other. So playing with kind of an idea of, we have in real theater, we're voyeurs, but we don't feel that way because we're so used to the convention of the fourth wall and we're not really in the same space. So I wanted to play with, does this now feel more voyeuristic because they've been talking directly to me and now I'm watching this married couple or this engaged couple having a private moment that I'm intruding on. So that's kind of been my process through everything, is looking at, and I've tried to do something different with each one.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, tell me if I'm wrong, Jen, this was your first one doing virtually or no?
So this is my first play doing virtually, but I do weekly shows
okay,
for
so you
improv.
have more experience. Yeah. Who was it that, I know somebody was like brand new. Lucia, okay. Lucia.
Yes.
How was it doing it first time, now I've done it before?
So way better than I expected. It might be. I am by nature a hugger in spirit and in physical presence. And the concept, especially because the piece that I did is a little heavy, Rain Like Tears, and I was expecting that the distance between me and my actors, as created by a Zoom format, would really hinder my ability to support them in developing their characters. And I found the opposite to be true, perhaps because it is a two-person play and I connected with the material, and I on purpose checked with my actors before casting them that they would be comfortable with the material. I think we started in a good place there, but I was nervous about how human emotion and authenticity might translate through the Zoom format. And so that's really what I focused on with my actors. I separately was worried about how the heck we were going to frame it. And I kept wondering how literal we should be. And the concept of the play itself takes place in the front seat of a car. And I, by nature, I'm a collaborative director. And so I really wanted to get the feedback from my actors about how to make it not not lose the authenticity without them actually sitting in a car. So I think I had different sets of challenges than I anticipated, but the overall experience was more rewarding than I expected, because the human connection part was not lost. It was just required some different types of directing on my part, a different skill set, I guess, I'm developing.
Great. Well, Lucia brought up a point that I wanted to ask about location-wise, because obviously doing it virtual, you kind of can do it anywhere. I know personally mine, we tried so hard to do it outside, but then every time we tried to do it, it was raining. So like I know Michael was going to do it in a location as well. Can we talk a little about that and decisions about why people chose to do it where they did it? So Michael, you want to start?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was actually pretty disappointed because I had done I directed one virtual show before, which was Chrysalis. And I really preferred to do something in person, if at all possible. Fortunately, the two actors I'd chosen for this project were kind of part of a pod, so they could be in the same room together. And so I was looking forward to doing that. And we had said, I'd been talking with a theater to use a corner of their available space and just actually do like a 3-camera setup and kind of transition this more into a film project. And I was really looking forward to getting into the tech and everything. And then one of my actors got exposed to COVID and got very sick. Fortunately, it was not COVID-19. It was another medical condition which already existed, but at least it wasn't something she didn't know how to deal with. So we ended up just filming them in a regular virtual performance like everyone else has done, where separate cameras at home. And it totally threw off my plans. So, but it gave me an opportunity to experiment a little bit with a technique I picked up from film acting, which is don't look directly at the camera. I know a lot of the virtual performances have been doing that. And when you have a large cast, there's often no way to get around positioning your actors, because unless you directly control who's in each scene and work with them specifically, okay, in this scene, you're on the very left end of the stage. In this scene, you're like second from the middle on the right. Then it becomes a hassle having them remember who they're looking at and where they are on the stage. So with only 2 actors, I was able to do this, say, okay, look at the corner of your computer screen rather than directly at the camera, and it'll look more like we're kind of just watching a private conversation rather than you're talking to the audience. And in this particular case, I think it worked pretty well.
Michael, yeah. I think that's interesting that you're talking about whether the actor should look right at the camera or not. There's been a lot of discussion about Zoom performances, and some people believe that it's better for the actors to look right at the camera, even if they're talking to each other in the scene, just because of the weirdness of it anyway. It helps the audience just kind of identify and kind of, they're having a tough time suspending disbelief anyway, so it doesn't really, for a lot of people, it doesn't really take away from, from what they're watching. But yeah, different philosophies on that.
Yeah, Tom, you could talk a little about location-wise too, because you actually had 2 actors in the same exact spot, but then also one playing a different character in different things. So how did that all work for you?
Right. I think Noelle and I were both lucky that way, that we were able to cast 2 people that were in the same location. And that really helped me tremendously in the Bluebird, because I had a couple that lived together, and they played the couple on the couch that were there, watching Netflix and binging. And that helped a lot. Plus, I had the fun of casting Chelsea Winstead as both the Lenore on the couch and as the Bluebird. So, I was able to record them separately, of course, different costumes and all that. Have them interact with each other, virtually, and then put it all together. One of my favorite things about this process that we're going through now with all these Zoom-inspired video productions is I've been able to learn some video editing and some OBS, open broadcasting, whatever it is, editing, audio editing coming up for the Halloween shows, which are going to be radio plays only. So I'm really enjoying learning the tech aspects of this. And, before it's all, live theater is where it's at, but this is neat to learn some new skills this way as well.
Definitely. Yeah, no, that's a great thing too. Anyone else have something they've actively learned while they were doing with this? Yeah, Noelle, or actually let's go to Art, because Art hasn't talked yet.
Yeah, going back to the point, I think I'm going to disagree as far as playing out to the audience. I found it worked really well to have the actors playing to each other. There's a technique that's been used for decades and decades in live action animation filming, and that is tennis ball on a stick, or the equivalent. So I had my 2 actors, and yeah, it is definitely simpler with 2 actors. I had each one of them know that they should look one to the right, one to the left, and that was going to be where the other actor was. And to put a stuffed animal off camera or something, a spot on the wall, and they would play to that consistently. And after like 1-2 rehearsals, they got into that very naturally, and it looked very realistic with the two windows side by side.
Yeah.
Granted, I went
1 second.
it's a different
Everyone raise your hand if you did the same kind of thing. I'm just curious if people did forward or to the sides. So raise your hand if you did more like Art said.
Yeah.
Grassy. Okay, see that it's nice to hear there's a mix even between us and what we decided to do. So go ahead, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, it can work well. You want to have a background that's roughly similar, so we picked something very neutral, a whitish wall, light colored carpet, although that barely came into it. And once that was done, I believe that it was fairly easy to suspend disbelief and have the actors react. I think it worked pretty well. I always found myself laughing at their acting when they were interacting with each other, very much so. And that was after like 6 rehearsals, and I still got a chuckle when they pull out something different, play it a little slightly different, a little surprise. So I think it really can work if you got the actors in separate windows, if you make that point of giving them a spot in space, and you as the director that's looking at the two of them can say, now move the stuffed animal a little higher, move it a little, okay, that's perfect. Now it looks like you were looking at your other actor, and vice versa. And once they got those points, tape on the floor to have the same spots for each rehearsal, and I think you're off and running.
Yeah. How about, oh, sorry, go ahead, Danielle.
Well, I was just going to say that in our piece, we had some of the actors that were, it was written for them to be at a Zoom meeting, and then the poets were on camera when they were doing their poem, but at the end, they were sort of backstage in their poet kennel. And so they were not on Zoom, and they were talking to each other. I gave the analogy of like in prison where you're sort of listening through the wall. So they weren't trying to see each other. They were trying to sort of turn their heads and listen.
It worked, Danielle. That came through to me very clearly. It worked.
Yeah, which actually brings me to mention the fact we picked these plays before COVID really happened. So a big thing is a lot of these plays were not written for Zoom. So some of them,
this many were written.
this many were written for Zoom. The nice thing, certain ones like Danielle's, the writer, worked with like adapted towards more, versus other ones we didn't even bother trying to adapt towards Zoom. So it's been interesting to see like plays like that are nowhere near written for this format be done.
Yeah, my playwright was super open to having it revised for Zoom, and I did that, and we went over changes and restructuring and all of that. So
great. Yeah, Bonnie, is there anything you learned throughout this process?
Yes, that artists are going to adapt and find a way to connect and be creative. And even though we're all separated, the sense of community and the sense of everybody's here to help and to make the project itself something incredible was really helpful. And this was my first time directing over Zoom. So it was not my first time performing over Zoom, but directing over Zoom, and then having to do the technical aspects of putting it together, and having other people help, and having an amazing production team helping, and a lot of that sense of collaboration and teamwork was really cool. Even though we couldn't all hang out together, we were still connected with this and said, let's make it something awesome. So I just wanted to start off with that. But it was interesting with our show. One of my actors was in California. She's back there. So we had to adapt and make it look like they were all in the same room without being in the same room. But it worked for my show because they were supposed to be in their own separate spheres. So it was interesting trying to figure out how best to do that. And we figured out more of a way to do that when we were filming and doing the editing process. And just a little bit of editing, tweaking, and a little bit of that just really helped to make it look as cohesive as possible. And also realizing that the audience was probably going to be fairly forgiving since we're all doing the best we can in these unprecedented times. That was, I think, one of the biggest things that I learned was that, take a breath. It's going to be okay. Everybody's here to do their best, and we're going to make it something, we're going to do the best we can with it and do something amazing. So
I want to acknowledge John Paul Middlesworth and Chloe Anderson for doing a job in editing.
A lot of work.
It was a lot of work, and John Paul never failed to remind me how much work mine was, because I was cinematic, and he had
it's the ones that
tiny little edits.
It's the ones that don't look like they take a lot of work that take so much work.
Classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to.
I just want to add one little thing. Bonnie and Jen, I edited both of theirs, and they had this one point or a couple points in their play where their actors all had to speak at once, and this is important. These actors, they had to do this, and Zoom is real bad at that. That's why we're having to take turns here. And so I came up with a technique. I guess I just thought of it, and that is the actors. In the initial Zoom recording, only one of the actors is speaking and everybody else is lip syncing. And then we went back and added, recorded those other voices sequentially, and I just stuck them all together in one editing panel there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had the same kind of thing, JP, but I actually record each person individually and then put them together.
Yeah. I think we're talking about the same thing. Yeah, that's what you have to do.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
just a little blip. It might be just a single word.
Yeah.
But if they all have to say it together, you can't rely on Zoom to capture that.
There's another technique I use that I like. I think I had a lot of success with. You guys will have to judge whether the sound quality in the affliction, the evenness of the sound, the lack of drops and things like that was better than in the other plays. But a thing I did was simultaneous with recording the Zoom, I had each of the actors have a smartphone in their hip pocket with a little microphone, lapel mic, in the way, and recorded their own voice locally. And then I had them send me those audio tracks, and it was pretty easy to combine them. We did the standard thing of going, okay, 1, 2, 3, everybody clapped together to be able to sync them up. And then I combined the audio tracks and then sent that to John Paul when he finished the final video edit, and he used my audio that I sent him as the actual audio and dumped Zooms.
That's great.
And I really think it had a big improvement in not any drops or places where you'll get a Zoom bzzz kind of a thing. I really feel strongly that psychologically, people are more comfortable with a little hiccup in film if the audio is very, very steady and realistic. They're more jarred by the audio dropping or the missing of a word or what was that? And they are by a little hiccup in the video. Maybe because there's so much information coming at you visually, you can kind of interpolate. Audio, it's a little harder. You really want to hear every sound.
That's actually a good point, because I had thought about doing that with my actors, but what I worried about was the phone's also going to pick up the speakers from the Zoom meeting.
Yeah, that's
So
what
I had them each record the Zoom meeting independently, so that I always knew that at least their audio would be clear.
Yeah, and I did wind up doing that. One of the actors saved me some work because she actually had a Bluetooth earpiece for her audio. So on hers, it did not pick up the other actor. But my second actor, the other one was picked up, but I went into a free tool called Audacity, and you can see the duplication of the wave, and you can like replace it with silence. And it winds up being easy but tedious to do that and get rid of it. But if everybody had an audio earpiece, then I wouldn't have even had to do that.
Wonderful. So obviously, while we're learning throughout this process, is there anything that you wish you had done differently, or you wish you'd thought of from the beginning, or anything along that line? Can we start with Jen there?
Yeah, I wish, so there's a couple of prop gimmicks in my play. Is this my support group? I wish that I had told them where they were sitting from the very beginning, especially with the cookie flying across and the grabbing of the tissue and the bubbles at the end and stuff. But I was very fortunate to be working with friends, and they were a little bit more forgiving than serious actors. So very fortunate.
Definitely. Well, I can say personally, I was so focused on angles because of all the different people in mine and figuring out feet and legs and hands that I know looking back, I wish I focused a little bit more on timing. But that's something I think if I had more time, I definitely would go back and do. Anyone else have something like that?
Yeah, early on, we were doing all our rehearsals strictly over Zoom. And after about one rehearsal, people started to adapt my two people started to adapt their delivery to the delay inherent in Zoom. And it totally threw the comedy off. It just ruined it. And after a little bit, I realized, how about this idea? And we would have our rehearsals start out as a simple audio conference call, which doesn't have that kind of delay. And we'd go through it and they'd get used to instant timing with no delays and no technological hiccups in the timing to be able to do the comedy as quick as you would normally do it on stage. And then we'd take a bio break or get a drink and adjourn to Zoom. And they remembered that timing and they ignored the fact that maybe their first word was lost by Zoom or that they accidentally trod on somebody else's line on Zoom. Knowing that with the separate recordings we were doing, that wouldn't really be an issue finally. And I wish we'd done that right from the beginning to keep that close comedy timing going on. I really feel that with things like that, you can have quick repartee even with Zoom.
Definitely. Yeah, Lucia?
Well, I find it interesting hearing you all talk about it because, and maybe it's because I came in late to the process by being able to get this piece after, just by the gift of fate, I think as John Paul said, that it never occurred to me to not film my actors in one take. So we just worked on making it a whole piece and trying to tighten it up. And so I then I think hearing what you guys are talking about in terms of editing different pieces and the audio and keeping it separate sounds really smart. And I'm actually grateful I hadn't thought about that ahead of time because I think I would have been more worried. I want to give a shout out to Rachel Anderson, who John Paul brought in as stage support. So that our audio and our lighting worked, and then also took ownership of the editing, which we didn't need a lot of, but I was really wanting some framing of sound and clips and actual framing. And that was a real gift to have her help on those elements. So I think using our resources, like I loved seeing John Paul sent around a clip of tips and on Zoom things. And perhaps if my piece was a little bit more complex, I would have used some more of those. But I wish I had been thinking of some more of those things in advance. So for my next Zoom piece, perhaps I'll have some things to think about.
Yeah, well.
See, I actually very deliberately treated mine as a one take. Do this as if it is a live show. And that was something that was really important to me because I didn't want to treat this like a film and I didn't want to rely on cutting things. I wanted kind of the magic of passing props and my character moving her camera. So now you see, oh, the two of them are actually in the same space now. And we did all of that live in one take with music and everything in OBS. So my husband and I, between the two of us, have learned OBS and learned graphic design and learned all sorts of things during this so that mine was completely done as a unit. So what we did is, we counted down and we came up with, there was that first slide and then that second slide, and she starts talking over the slide. And so everything done in mine was done live. The actors were able to watch our screen to see what was happening live with the backgrounds, with the camera cuts, with everything as it happened as a live streaming show.
I really like that, Noelle, because one of the things we talked about early on with the producers was we wanted this to be a theatrical experience, not just a series of short films. Mm-hmm. And so we said, therefore you're required to use Zoom. And I really like the idea of doing it in one take. I try to do as much of that as I could too, because then you get into the the loveliness of movies that have those long takes and how much we all appreciate that and what goes into that. So I embrace that myself.
And
Yeah,
the energy of the actors working together in the moment and not having to go. And then we're going to cut to this other thing. I wanted that flow. And I think that one thing too is that in everything that I've directed through Zoom is really, really driving pace. And when you're on Zoom with that delay, if somebody really has a tendency to and then start their acting, it feels interminable. So I'm like, you guys got to really, really, really jump on each other. What is the thing in your line that you're actually reacting to? And react on that so that you're ready to start talking before their last word's done. So for me, the flow was so important. And Lucia, I think actually your play was the stronger for you doing it in one take too. So I'm glad you didn't think of it.
Yeah, I think that even if you're going to do something like I was able to do, thanks to John Paul, of interspersing close-ups, doing it all in one take and having two cameras is a huge, huge plus. I totally agree with you. Stage actors especially, they're not used to going in and out of characters so quick.
Yeah, I want to say I think all you directors really made your actors work hard for this. I mean, they all, nobody did a bunch of little short takes that I could tell. I mean, these were actors who had prepared a full scene and were really ready to come to it as if they were doing it on stage. And we weren't sure at the beginning whether we were going to require that, but we asked it, and all of you delivered. It was good.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I think the whole festival was better for it. I don't know how much went into it back and forth, but I feel like overall we gave the audience a strong product because all of the actors, directors jumped in a way that was more intentional than just phoning it in because it's on the side, but intentionally trying to own the opportunities of doing it remotely. So that's
On the
encouraging.
other hand, having the luxury of, if you encounter an internet problem where there's like a pause, being able to tell the actors, okay, that was screwed up, start from this line, and then have that bobble edited out is a real blessing. Oh my God, if you have to deal with this tech.
Sure.
So this next one, I want actually everyone to answer this because we have some people who are trying to get involved in virtual theater and don't really know and are learning new things. If you could tell one person who comes to you and says, what do I do? Like, what tip can you give me? Like, please give me anything that will help me do this. What would you say to them? If you want to just start with, let's start backwards. Jen, you're bottom of my screen. So.
Just do it. Like, that's the thing. We're all learning. I'm somebody who does a tremendous amount of improv online, and it's hard and it takes some time to get used to, but just doing it and doing it and doing it more comfortably, it becomes almost like a second nature. So I'd say just keep at it and it'll eventually click.
Great. Art?
Yeah, I'd say that there's mainly three things that I learned. The overall arching thing is help your actors through the tech as well as helping them through the characterizations like you normally would directing. The three things I think are that tennis ball on a stick technique, to be able to get them to consistently look at each other, even though they're in different rooms. Second thing is separately recording that audio. And the third thing, I didn't mention it before, but with my actors, there was a lot of physical comedy, which required full body. And so we actually had everybody lay their phone or PC on the side to get an elongated view, even though it looked really stupid when we were actually doing rehearsal because people were physically laying sideways on the display. But John Paul rotated and shifted them. Mm-hmm. So don't feel that you're limited by the size and shape of the window in the Zoom meeting. Know that the editing post can do a lot of wonderful magic. I guess those are kind of the three lessons I take away.
Very true. Yeah. Noelle?
I would say it's the thing that I always try to do is what can you do to embrace Zoom that you wouldn't be able to do in a traditional theater? And for this play in particular, if you have not, go back and watch my play again and just watch Sam in the background. I was able to just completely let him off the leash, and he's back there doing so much stuff that would have been so distracting on stage. You can see when I don't want to give spoilers away, but you can see when he does something to one of the drinks that actually happens. But you wouldn't be able to do that in a real theater because it would pull too much focus. He's back there with an apple, eating it off of a knife. He's washing dishes. Like, he is doing the most back there. I find new things every time I watch it.
I never noticed that, but that's brilliant. That's a really cool observation. It was very subtle.
Watch it again just for Sam. Just for Sam. He's doing everything up there.
Tom?
I was gonna. Okay, so my thought on this is going back to when you're thinking about producing a show that's going to go out on a Zoom-based show. Early on in the COVID nightmare, we all were thinking, well, we're going to do this live. That's the big thing, because it's live theater, so we're going to do it across Zoom live, or we're going to stream live and all this, and that's fine. And there were some great shows that were done that way, but as we all know, live technically adds so many challenges, as we saw tonight. So and I watched some live shows, and I'm like, okay, I know this is live, cerebrally, but I'm not really noticing it when I'm watching my screen here, seeing people. I'm not seeing any difference between that and recording. It doesn't really. So to me, the bang for the buck wasn't there. I'm like, just do a good job and record it and send it out later. You don't have to do it live. If you're not right in front of people in the same room, they're not gonna really catch that unless you're doing, like Jen was talking about, improv. And then I think that's even more exciting to do improv over Zoom, because then you're jolted, like, oh my God, that's right, this is live. She heard what I said or whatever,
Great.
I don't know. I'm going to fight with Tom on this. I think that for some shows, being able to pre-record and do ahead is going to be taking advantage of your technology more. But I think there's other shows that are well served and are better served by being live streamed. So I think that
I agree with I think within this group of 10, I think a solid 50% could have been done fantastically live, and the other 50% needed help. You need other things. Like, I could not have done mine live. I could not have. So there's just ones you just can't, and some that'd be great. So I definitely agree with that.
I will also argue that while the technology does allow you to fix things later if you record it and so on, when you get in the habit of fixing it in post, then you're going to lose the magic that is live theater. When mistakes happen and actors have to compensate and remain in character, and some of the most beautiful, magical moments happen then. So I wouldn't want to take that away from my actors.
Oh yeah, I only meant when it's Zoom causing the problem and not an actor's natural bobble.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree too. I would not want anything to be picture perfect, because then again, it does feel like film. But I do have to agree with Tom, the fact that there are certain special effects and things you can add that you can't do live. You just can't. Danielle?
Yeah, even though I said I wanted to go for a film look, which I think we did, we treated it like theater, and I am a little bit dyslexic, and I couldn't figure out how to say, like, look to this way, because they couldn't see me. So I just used stage terms, like, go down stage left, go up right, and we ran it like we would a play. And we did speed throughs before we recorded, which was really useful for the actors to get the timing down and not have to be moving their computer and everything. So so I thought it was a good marriage of stage and movie.
Cool.
And the only thing
Bonnie? I can't tell if she's stuck. Hello. Okay. Bonnie, do you have any tips or anything?
Yes. I know I keep saying yes very emphatically. Expect something to go wrong, just like live theater. Just expect that something probably will, whether it is somebody's internet or some sort of audio issue, or suddenly there's no sound coming out of my microphone that's built into my laptop or whatever. Like, just expect that there is going to have some sort of technological whatever, because it's 2020, and then try to have backup plan around it, or your actors being really great and flexible and willing to work around that, instead of just saying, well, I don't want to, like, I didn't have that problem, thankfully, but having people who understood what we were trying to do. And if things needed to be adjusted, if things were going wrong, they were very much willing to go, okay, let me work with what I can do. Let me see where I can fix this. And yeah, just expect that something will probably go wrong, just as we do for live theater, and try to have a backup plan and some sort of if this, then this plan, just in case.
Yeah, that's the love thing about theater online. There's always problems. I'll say I saw one the other day, a friend of mine who did a live one down in Florida, and they had a fantastic thing happen where a guy's sound went off in the middle. And he didn't know that. Like, he was just acting full out. He was doing his whole thing. And the other actor realized it. And so he just started saying the other guy's lines, trying to match his mouth. And at the time, I didn't know it was a problem. I thought it was part of the show. And then after I learned this was like what issue they had. But they worked it perfectly in such a way that, like, it almost just felt like part of the comedy. Like, so things like that are just fun.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's amazing.
I always set with actors, here is what you do if someone is muted. You don't say, hey, John Paul, you're muted. You say, oh, I'm sorry, character name. I didn't catch that. Could you repeat yourself?
That's a great
Because
tip.
actors' inclination is to go, hey, Jen, you're muted. No, don't say, hey, Jen, you're muted.
Not
Say,
in the middle
oh,
of a
I'm
live thing.
sorry, character name. I didn't catch that. Could you repeat yourself? And keep it in character. We've had to use that twice so far.
JP, I think we haven't asked you yet about any tips.
Yeah, like, in theater, we get to see a bunch of people on stage, and the nice thing that I mention to people about theater is you get to look where you want to look. You don't have the film director makes you look in some place, but if I want to look over at somebody's reaction, I can do that in theater. And I think that Zoom even heightens that, and we tend to put several faces on the screen, and a lot of times they're all the same size, and so the person who's reacting has got as big a role as the person who's doing the initial lines. So, I think that keeping that in mind as you're planning and even as you're acting, to think, my gosh, somebody could watch me the entire time and tune everybody else out,
Mm-hmm.
So it's a heightened responsibility in Zoom to react.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I feel like I didn't ask Lucia yet that question.
Okay.
Do you have any?
So I would say I agree with everything that everybody else said. And also sort of piggybacking on Bonnie's concept of allowing for the learning curves that you don't expect is an important part of the planning, but also remembering to own your talents and your passion, the thing that drew you to theater in the first place. Because I think I was getting initially a little more concerned by the distractions Zoom might provide instead of owning why I'm drawn to this in the first place. And if I focus on that, especially during these pandemic times, I would end rehearsal and I was so elevated, and in a way that I had not anticipated would happen when I'm not interacting with my actors live. And that's what brought me to theater in the first place. So I would encourage people to tune into the things that they love about theater, whether they're acting or directing, and don't lose sight of those things. And then also use your resources and allow for the learning curves, knowing that there will be places to learn new things, especially in the areas you've not worked before. And I think in live theater, we've all become very good at adapting, and we now need to learn how we adapt in this medium.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, as we start to wrap up, oh, sorry, Michael, go ahead.
All right. Yeah, actually, the only thing I'd really add to all of that is, I guess, technical or practical recommendations. Like, as an actor, the only thing I could really recommend in addition is, if you can, invest in a decent webcam if you don't already have one, because having a lousy camera really limits the end result. But for directors, learn OBS. It's free and it's incredibly powerful. Mm-hmm. And don't limit yourself to your geographic location like we're accustomed to in theater. We're trained to think, okay, who do I know that could do this? And you're only thinking, okay, in the triangle area. Yeah. I just directed.
Yeah, raise your hand if you had someone that was not in local area in your play.
Sorry? Yeah.
Raise your hand if you had someone not in the local area in your play. I just want to see how we got. Okay. we got some wide range people. Great. Go ahead.
Yeah. I just directed a reading where my lead was in Virginia. And for one of the other major roles, I was actually able to connect with an old friend of mine from college who was living in Portland. And it was great to get a chance to work together. We haven't worked together on stage in good grief over 20 years. And it was fantastic. But you're now pulling from a much wider pool than you have been. So I guess just keep that in mind and don't limit yourself.
I would say learn OBS or bribe John Paul with pancakes.
You owe me those pancakes.
I owe you pancakes. I absolutely owe you
on
pancakes.
JP.
Or learn what other people can do in OBS.
There you go.
Learn what OBS can do so that you can ask John Paul, hey, can you do this thing for me after you feed him pancakes?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of credit to Adobe Premiere also. I used OBS for gens, but I think otherwise I was mostly working with Premiere. So.
That and DaVinci apparently are also, which is another free application, but a very powerful one for editing.
Okay.
I haven't tried it yet, but I've heard good things about it.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention one thing about, back to live again. From the audience perspective, one thing I like about Zoom theater is that in real theater, audience can't say anything, at least they shouldn't say anything during the show. And in Zoom theater, if the broadcast is set up to have a group chat, it's really been interesting for me to be able to chat while I'm watching the shows with friends and others, and so that adds another dimension which I really enjoyed.
And I have to say, being able to promote widely is also a great gift, because so often you are limited by the people who could physically attend your plays. So I think it's a good twist. I know it may not be, it's obviously not by choice, but it's a nice bonus.
Yeah, definitely. Great. So as we start wrapping up, I would love to hear if anyone has any projects that are coming up that they're working on so we can advertise for you here. Yeah, no, I saw Noelle raise her hand first.
I have got several upcoming productions. I have started a virtual theater company during the pandemic, as one does, because, like Jen said, just do it. So we have got a production by a playwright from the Harlem Renaissance, Eulalie Spence. We are doing Undertow and the Starter, which is a play, which is two plays who have only been produced a handful of times in the last 100 years. And we've got an amazing cast for that, and that is on October 13th. And then next after that is The Rover by Afra Ben, who is a Restoration era comedy, and it is hilarious. And that is November 10th. That is directed by me. And then in December, we are doing a modern adaptation of the Second Shepherd's Play, which is part of the medieval mystery play cycle. And we are adapting that for the year 2020. And auditions for that are this week. So sign up for that if you're an actor, or tune in the weekend of December 11th to watch that fully staged virtual production. All of those performed live and streamed on the Twitch. So check out our Facebook.
And that company is Brave New Classics on Facebook.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Check out thepitchapelhill.com. We've got shows every Thursday, every other Friday, every other Saturday. We're trying to do as much stuff as we can online there. And then I also do work with the Global Improv Project out of Charlotte. We just did a show in India last weekend. It was super fun. And then I'm doing the Long Story Short Play Festival at Carolina.
Right.
Thank you, Danielle, for suggesting that. And yeah, if you're interested in improv, I'm teaching for the Pit in New York City starting in November. So try it out.
Cool.
Art Rose, I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah. I mentioned before the radio plays that Odyssey's doing. The one that we had kickoff live and then COVID hit. But we went through all of our rehearsals hoping that we'd still be able to do it. We decided that with the tight dialogue, it's very, very, it's the Thin Man, basically. It's a Thin Man show. So the Nick and Nora Charles interactions are very, very tight. Everybody decided by vote that we couldn't really do it with Zoom at the time. That was before I thought about the idea of separately recording. So I'm going to go back to everybody and try this technique of local recordings on everyone that works so well, I think, on The Affliction, and see if we can get the thing actually mounted and put out there. So wish us luck on having a play with 9 actors with separate recordings and putting all that together.
And Tom, do you want to talk a little about Halloween?
Yeah, so Cary Playwrights Forum is working with the Greensboro Playwrights Forum on a radio play show that will be Halloween themed, and we'll be putting out 10 podcasts over a series of 3 weeks at the end of October and early November. So speaking of Audacity, we're all excited about getting knee deep into that technology, and we hope to have all 10 of them out and released before the really scary day, which is November 3rd.
Yeah, Lucia?
I just wanted to promote one thing that is happening this weekend and next weekend. As it turns out, the other theater company that does 10-minute plays that is very close to my heart is also running their 10-minute play festival right now and next weekend. And that's in Maryland, and it's at garfieldcenter.org, but it's called Short Attention Span Theater Fest. And that's a theater that I ran for many years and is close to my heart because I know they have building expenses and staff expenses along with everything else. It was totally, that's something I got to act in, and it was intrigued to see the distinction between all of the different sets of 10-minute plays going on. I'm also involved with something going up on October 18th called It Can't Happen Here, which has been adapted by Leslie Frost at Carolina and plays on, it was a piece that it was very timely during the era of the federal project, and it is very timely now. And I also am part of the Suffragist Project, which is produced by Odyssey Stage, and someone else can speak more details about that as they evolve. But that's exciting to know it's in the works, and I think shifting to a slightly different medium.
Well, I'm excited. I know Bonnie, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I'm teaching voice acting to kids at NRACT through the beginning of November. So I'm really excited. It's fun. I was just, promoting that. It's great.
Well,
Thanks.
I'm excited to see everyone. I think everyone else will be excited to see the shows you have coming up and whatever comes throughout this, and hopefully soon we will be able to all get together in an actual space and do theater live that way. So I think we'll wrap up now. Any audience people out there, please know you can still buy a ticket for tonight. We will be still selling tickets literally through tomorrow at noon for viewing up until tomorrow at midnight. Pay what you can, literally pay $1. We're okay with that. We just want you to see it, come enjoy, watch the great shows, okay? Say bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Thanks for watching the shows.